Next thing that we got to talk about, I guess the last thing, is living with a narcissistic parent is one of the saddest things that I've encountered as a psychiatrist. And it's like kind of a weird reason. The really sad thing about having a narcissistic parent is that the moment you have a narcissistic parent, you lose a parent. Like, you don't have a regular parent. You don't have a loving parent. Like, a narcissistic parent is a replacement for a good parent. Like, they come in and they take the opportunity for you to have a good parent in your life and they take it away. If you're lucky and you're blessed, hopefully you have one good parent who's not narcissistic, who's helps you and supports you and loves you and all that kind of stuff. And the grief of having a narcissistic parent is profound. The amount of screwed you in life you are, the profound sadness, the profound, like, just how much can you get screwed in life when you have a narcissistic parent is astronomical. And it is because...
And he's absolutely right about this. Like, this is all very true. When you have a narcissistic parent, the compound effect of that can be devastating over your life, as opposed to a supportive, encouraging, and loving parent that tries their best to love you unconditionally, versus the narcissistic parent who loves you conditionally, with exceptions, with strings attached, who guilt trips you, who tears you down. It just turns into a night and day difference over the course of a child's upbringing.
Because that feels so bad that doing these symbolic gestures is so hard. It's like, if I've lost all of this and this parent has taken all of this away from me, you want me to humor them. You want me to have a symbol of kindness. You want me to lay down and take it. That's one step too far. I'm at 1 HP. I cannot give a single more hit point. It's so hard because of the grief. The sense of loss is profound. And it is the sense of loss that also keeps us stuck. Because on the one hand, if I say, do this thing, you'll say, that's enabling. I don't want to do that thing. But if y'all have narcissistic parents, you know how hard you've tried to develop a healthy relationship with them. Blood, sweat, and tears. You're paying 200%. They're paying 0%. Anytime you make them pay, they transfer the debt to you. Anytime you tell them, hey, you hurt me, they feel guilty, they punish you for it. Like, what the fuck? How is that ever fair? Because you've tried. If y'all have narcissistic parents, you know what I'm talking about. You've tried and tried and tried. It doesn't work. And that's because there's nothing going on the inside. Not nothing. But they lack the capacity to mentalize. And it's like, it's really bad. And the other thing that makes this grief so bad, and this is why, like, I'm really grateful. I don't know if psychologists get these kinds of opportunities. I'm not saying that psychiatrists are better than psychologists. And I mention that because I'm afraid it's going to come off that way. But I really love being a medical doctor. And the reason for that is, like, I will get consulted in places like the neuro ICU because there's someone who's in a coma. And when someone's in a coma, it's a very special kind of grief, devastating kind of grief. See, if you have a spouse that dies, they're gone and you can grieve and move on. When they're in a coma, grieving is really difficult because they're not there practically, but you can't afford to grieve and let go because they could wake up tomorrow. What if you move on and they wake up? What if you get remarried and they wake up? Like, then what the fuck? And honestly, when I work with patients who have narcissistic parents, the grief that they experience is not the grief of death. It's the grief of coma, because you're holding on to hope that one day your parent may wake up. One day your parent may realize what they've done to you. One day there's an opportunity that you have had this asshole parent your whole life, but oh my God, all you want is a mother who understands and loves you. All you want is a mother who, instead of punishing you, takes your pain away. All you want is a mother who takes 200% of the work and leaves you with a 0% of the work. That's what other people get, man. They get moms who tank shit for them.
And so part of healing is accepting that that's not going to be how it is. That's one of the first steps, right? You have to accept what they are not going to be for you. If you can't accept that first piece, then I think you're setting yourself up for failure. And you kind of have a reservation at that case. You have a reservation that, well, if I start acting differently, maybe, just maybe, my narcissistic mother or father will give me what I need. They'll be able to meet my needs. But that, to me, is a faulty foundation. You don't want to start there. You start by truly accepting that what he's saying right here isn't going to happen. That's the first step. Understand that and accept that they're a narcissist. And when they're a narcissist, you have to act accordingly. That's number one. Once you do that, then you move through. You move through here. You fully accept and understand what they can't be for you. And then you take it from there. That's what I would say.
Not thrust them into the damage. And since that human being is alive, and since you've seen a spark of compassion here or there, when the narcissistic defense mechanisms sometimes calm down and your mom or dad says, hey, I've been a shit parent to you sometimes, you see that glimmer, and that's not a symbol, that's substance. Deep down in there, they may be blind to it, but sometimes the clouds part and you see it. And since you see it, that's why you feel guilty. That's why you can't let go. That's why you keep trying and keep hoping. I want a parent. I deserve a parent. And every now and then, every once in a while, I believe there's one in there. And so you're stuck. You can't leave them behind, because just like they're tangled up with you, you're tangled up with them. Because what kind of person would you be if you abandoned your narcissistic parent? You'd be a bad person. And therefore, you can't handle that. So you need to be a good person. And a good person doesn't abandon their parents. My parents abandoned me. I don't want to abandon them. I don't want to do the same thing that they did to me, even though that's what you want more than anything else. It's so tangled up.
So again, what he just said there is a good example of deering, defending, excusing, explaining, rationalizing. If you don't want to go no contact because you think it would make you a bad person and you want to be a good person, that's an example of rationalizing to yourself and explaining to yourself why you're not going to do what is best for you. But my number one principle is you practice radical self-respect first, and then the dominoes fall as they may from there. And I don't think it makes anyone a bad person to not tolerate disrespect. Like, does anyone think that? Or some people might try to say, well, it's your family. Blood's thicker than water, or whatever the people say when it comes to toxic/dysfunctional families, right? And I'm here to tell you, that's all BS. That part's BS. If someone's disrespecting you and abusing you, you have to do what's best for you. And you should not feel guilty for doing what's best for you. I understand why you might, especially since your narcissistic parent conditioned you to feel guilty if you ever did what was best for you, if you ever put yourself first. Yeah, they would guilt trip the hell out of you. Absolutely. But part of unsubscribing is learning to be okay doing what's good for you. And then the more you get okay with it, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve at first, but eventually you're not going to feel guilty anymore when you put yourself first, because you've learned how to love and accept yourself. And when you love and accept yourself, you don't tolerate disrespect. You don't tolerate people treating you poorly anymore. So you see how they both go hand in hand? This is the reason why I created radical self-respect to begin with. To me, it's the guardrail. It protects us from toxic relationships. It protects us from people like narcissists. Because I'll tell you this, there is no world where you can practice radical self-respect and still be very emotionally close to a narcissist. There is no world where that happens. You can have maybe a very distant relationship, perhaps with one that has no emotional depth. Okay, because you can't go no contact. But outside of that, you're not going to see it. You will just not.
You do about it? I don't know. Notice, right? That there's a part of you that wants this parent. You want them to wake up. And here's the really cool thing and really sad thing is that I think the best thing to do is to grieve them, to say, you know what, in my karma in this life, like I'm not getting a regular parent, to go and live your life, to separate, to individuate, to set boundaries when you need to, and play the game of symbols when you can't. You can't transform them into a healthy parent. The best you can do is to have a life of your own. And the really beautiful thing is that I see consistently a level of peace with narcissistic parents. If you walk this road and you're lucky and you do it in the right way, if you give them enough of a symbolic gesture and you start to build a life, and then sometimes you calm down the narcissistic defense mechanisms and you say something, occasionally something will sink in. And then you'll go up to them and you'll have a grandkid one day and you go to your parents and you say, look, mom or dad, you've had a huge impact on me in my life. Some of it has been good, some of it has been less than good. If you want a relationship with your grandchild, you need to go to therapy. Or I want you to go to therapy. Will you please go to therapy? One of those may work way better than the other. Do y'all understand? And if you feel anger and resentment, you say you have to go to therapy if you're going to set a boundary, they may not respond well to that. And
I think no matter what you say and how you say it, they're probably not going to respond well to being told they need to go to therapy to have a relationship with your kids. A truly narcissistic person, again, some of what he sounds like here, it's almost like he's not talking about narcissistic people. He's talking about like normal people that are just emotionally immature, is almost what it sounds like. But if it's truly a narcissistic person, whether you say more as, oh, if you don't go to therapy, you're not going to have a relationship with my kids, or will you please go to therapy, or whatever way you say it, they're not going to like it. And if anything, they're going to perceive that as an attack. And what happens when they perceive something as an attack? They will lash out and punish you. So again, if they're truly a narcissistic person, I just don't really see this going well, this aspect of it. And again, if you have kids and you have a narcissistic parent, I think you have to play it by ear. But what I hear happen all the time is the narcissistic mother or father, they just don't respect the boundaries that you and your husband or wife have. And they'll do things that they don't want you to do, that you don't want them to do. And it just becomes tough. But again, enforcing consequences, if you don't want to go no contact, you're going to have to be very comfortable saying no. You're going to have to be very comfortable putting yourself first and disappointing them. That's all going to be very important. And again, if you didn't heal that trauma bond, it's going to be very uncomfortable putting yourself first. You're going to be eaten alive by guilt. That's why it's important to heal that trauma bond with them. And I hear this all the time in my coaching consultations as well. There'll be women who reach out to me. This is a common scenario. And they're with a guy who is enmeshed with his narcissistic mother. And the guy is also narcissistic. And they just don't see it. They don't recognize that aspect of it, right? Now, that doesn't mean they're not doing the abuse they do to the partner intentionally. No. What I'm saying is they don't recognize the problematic dynamic they have with their mother. And so when that's the case, you can't tell them anything. They get very upset about it very quickly because of that hypersensitivity to criticism, and they'll lash out and they'll say, you're bad talking my mother, you're ridiculous. And there's just not much you can do in that case. You have to remove yourself is generally what you have to do, because if that guy is unwilling to see that situation, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. So again, two things can be true at once. The narcissistic person can manipulate and do what they want to get narcissistic supply, power, control, manage their image, avoid accountability very intentionally, but they still might not recognize the dynamic they have with their mother. I think both of those things can be true at the same time.
And what you have to ask yourself is, this is so, I don't know if this is going to make sense. Sometimes my patients will say things to their narcissistic parents that they know their parents cannot handle. You need to go to therapy. Deep down, you know, if you say that, they never fucking will. And if they never fucking will, then there won't be any repair. And if there's never any repair, then you won't have to do any work, and you can just go to your grave hating them. Such sweet, simple, so easy. It's hard, but it can be easy. Y'all with me? And sometimes, will you go to therapy? Please go to therapy. I want to form a bond with you, but this is what I really think you need to do, or let's do it together. And it takes immense courage. I would never, ever, ever blame someone for not walking that path. It takes more strength than I have. It's like superhuman. That's why I love being a psychiatrist, because I see human beings that are amazingly powerful, like just fucking.
And part of the selection bias here is he's only seeing a certain kind of people. There's many people who are very problematic and disordered that he's just not seeing. He's only seeing the people that are in front of him, which requires them to at least make the effort to see him, right? And maybe they've got an ultimatum or something. But we always say also, don't go to couples counseling with a narcissist. Don't go to these therapy sessions with them. It's just not going to go well. The narcissistic person is going to try to manipulate the therapist and use it for validation, use it for narcissistic supply, use it to triangulate you with the therapist. It's just playing with fire. So you got to be careful with some of this stuff here. And the way he's angling it as a superpower, I don't know if I would angle this as a superpower. But again, you have to play each situation individually. It's very dangerous, I think, to give such broadband advice unless it's just protect yourself first. Like, protect yourself first, do what is best for you. I can say with confidence, that's a good thing, right? I'm not hurting anyone by saying that. But when you try to get into the weeds here with, oh, will you go to therapy and play the game a little bit? Now it really does depend more on what that specific situation is like, because there's many situations when I would not recommend that at all. But again, this is the issue with generalized suggestions and advice. When you don't know a specific situation, what someone is saying might not apply to that situation.